Good morning, everyone. Today we are examining Jeremiah chapter 49. Now, as we looked at yesterday in reading the chapter, you have a number of different nations that God is going to deliver his judgment against, or his words against. And all of these nations are ones that settle around the area of the people of Israel. Some are further to the east, like Kedar and Hazor, but the rest of them are right there in the general area of the Israelites in Palestine. And you see a couple of different things. And I want to point out the first thing that's not actually from the text itself per se, but just an analysis of it. And that is the fact that Nebuchadnezzar didn't just come in and deal with Israel or Judah. Nebuchadnezzar, when he came in with the Babylonians, he went through all of the nations in the region. He came through conquering everybody. And there wasn't anybody that was going to be spared, the Babylonians. You know, we talk about them being the first world empire of that day. And that is because they didn't leave anybody behind. They were those that came through and conquered all of the nations that they came across that weren't allied with them already, like what you have with the Medes and the Persians. But you're going to have the Babylonians, who are going to be an extremely strong force. They are going to exert an iron will, if you want to call it that, across the nations around their region, and they are going to spread their tentacles far and wide. And so when it comes to the time of captivity for the people of Judah, Judah is not the only nation that is going to go into captivity and that is going to have all of those things that are going to happen to them. They are, however, going to have it directly as a result of God working against them, and not as a matter of just pure happenstance, because there have been many enemies that have come upon Judah in the past, and they have not been successful in taking over Judah, even though they might have been superior in numbers. Here, however, it's different. So as you come into chapter 49 and you see those things, recognize that we're dealing with the other nations that Babylon is going to cover. Also in chapter 49, it is interesting to note that you have the cousins of Israel that are being discussed. You have Ammon and Moab, which are going to be the descendants of Lot. You are also going to have Edom, which are the descendants of Esau. And so you're going to have a number of cousin countries, if you want to call them that are going to be discussed by God here. And these are going to be some of the things that are going to take place to them. Within the text, I want you to notice a couple of different things. First of all, in verse 1 of chapter 49, in speaking concerning Ammon, the Lord makes this statement. He says, "Has Israel no sons? Has he no heir? Why then does Milcom inherit Gad, and his people dwell in its cities?" God asked the question, has Israel been completely destroyed so that there is nobody left? Well, the answer, of course, is no. There are remnants of the people of Israel. There were remnants of the northern kingdom of Israel even before those days. He said, if that's the case, then why does Milcom inherit Gad? Or in other words, why have you moved in on their territory? What has happened is the Ammonites, now that the people have been carried away, the Ammonites have decided that it's open season on Israelite territory. So they have moved into the region of Gad and set up shop. And they have begun to take over their cities and to settle in as though the region is their own. And God says, the days are coming, verse 2, that I will cause to be heard an alarm of war. God isn't going to allow them to encroach on Israelite territory just because of what has befallen the Israelites, because it is still the land of promise to them, and there will be a remnant returning. And so the Ammonites are going to get a warning from God about encroaching on places that are not theirs, which is kind of an interesting thing you read about once in a while today, of somebody who leaves home on vacation and comes home and there's somebody squatting on their property or things of that nature. And those things still do happen today, even. But the point is, if it's not yours, you don't have the right to take it just because somebody else isn't there at a time. And it's an interesting point that God brings out in verse 1 regarding the Ammonites. The second thing that I want to point out is in verse number 16. And it deals with the Edomites and the things that God says concerning Edom. Here he says, "Your fierceness has deceived you, the pride of your heart. O you who dwell in the clefts of the rock, who hold the height of the hill. Though you make your nest as high as the eagle, I will bring you down from there, says the Lord." This is a statement about Mount Seir, which is the main mountain fortress of the Edomites. The Edomites took great pride in Mount Seir, and they believed that as long as they had Mount Seir, they would never be defeated, they would never be destroyed. Such was not true. They were destroyed and they were defeated on Mount Seir, but they had great pride in their mountain. He says, "O you who dwell in the clefts of the rock, who hold the height of the hill." Edom had great pride, but their pride was centered in themselves and in their mountain. They believed that as long as they had their land and their things, nobody could control them. Nobody could defeat them, and nobody could truly overtake them. They would just go up into their mountain fortress and wait them out, and they could not be taken. But they will be taken, and they will be overcome. They will be destroyed as a nation by those that are going to come storming through their gates. But their fierceness has deceived them. They don't believe they need God's help. They don't believe they need anybody's help as far as that goes. They are self-sufficient. There are a lot of people who go through life that way today. They don't need anybody's help. They don't need anyone. They don't need anything. They can do it all by themselves until they can't. And so one of the lessons that we need to learn from Edom is not to allow our pride to be puffed up, where we refuse to listen to God and we refuse to listen to others because we are so proud and because we are so convinced that we can do it all by ourselves. These are some of the things that I found in Jeremiah chapter 49. I know there's other things that we could talk about, but I don't want this to get too lengthy. So these are some things that I found that I think are interesting and that are valuable lessons for us. We will be taking a short break for a couple of days due to some travel arrangements that have come up. But next week we will come back, and we have 3 chapters left in Jeremiah, and so next week, Lord willing, we will be able to finish our studies through Jeremiah. Until then, I hope you have a great day.